Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Frank, back with another video for you today, helping you create a successful florist business. So if you happen to be a retail florist with a brick and mortar flower shop, or a floral designer working for an established florist, maybe you're a studio designer or a home-based florist, or today, I'm really talking to a lot of flower farmers out there, as well as event companies. So in today's video, like I mentioned, I'm kind of focusing on flower farmers, but this actually goes for everybody. I actually had a direct message from a subscriber actually asking me if I would share information about how to work with wholesale florists and flower farmers and anyone or any company that a florist would be working with in order to get product to work with, product to create your actual design work with. So if you follow my channel and you've subscribed, if you've watched any number of my videos, you might actually think that all I do is technical, business, web-based sorts of things having to do with the flower business. But first and foremost, I am a floral designer. That's how I got started in the business. I've had many years in the industry as a designer, and I know firsthand all the ins and outs and the challenges that you can come up against when you're trying to get product for your business. So since I had somebody actually directly ask me to create some content for you on this topic, I then also had a pretty in-depth conversation with a really good friend of mine in my immediate local area who happens to be a flower buyer for a major floral wholesaler. And this made me realize that this is a really good topic and the timing is kind of right on at the moment to really talk about where your flowers are coming from, how you get them, what affects their costs, and the kinds of availability and varieties that you might want to work with and where you're actually going to be able to source them. One thing I'd like to point out to all florists, whether you are experienced or not, understanding how flowers are available and why they're available at certain times is a big determining factor on why flowers cost the way they do and why certain things are only available at certain times of the year. When it comes to starting a flower business of some sort this year in 2021 or in years to come, maybe you're planning ahead, there is a really big movement towards producing flowers and growing flowers on a commercial scale to be able to sell within the United States. This is a business that years ago we used to have many growers throughout the United States producing all kinds of things specifically for the floral industry. Some of these businesses were really big, some of them were on a much smaller scale, and then the floral industry really did a big flip. And a lot of it was due to the development of the wire services. Teleflora, FTD, 1-800-Flowers, Pro Flowers, etc., etc. And it really affected the floral industry as a whole. A lot of this big flip really had to do with availability and how much product a flower farmer can actually produce with a single crop. So a lot of these flower farmers, when the big flip took effect and most of this, I have to say, was caused by the wire services. There were really large flower farms established in other countries outside the United States. That was really the only way to do it cost effectively so that they could produce enough flowers for their members, for any florists that were actually part of those wire services, etc. Because it takes, believe it or not, a massive amount of flower product. Now, however, design trends and what designers do with flowers is very much a big part of what dictates the flower farmers, what they're growing and what they're producing for us to be able to access and use in our design work. Design trends have a direct effect on what is being grown and produced, and thus being able to be sold at a wholesale level for all of us floral designers throughout the world to be able to utilize in our daily design work. Now, in this first video, in this playlist series, one thing I really wanted to point out is something that I just learned last week from my local friend that I mentioned that works as the main flower buyer at a major floral wholesaler here in my immediate area. And that is design trends and how they have changed what florists create. And if you look at different florist design work on Instagram, that's a really good example and good place to get ideas as to kinds of flowers that you might be wanting to utilize. This is also a really good spot for flower farmers to be looking at flower varieties and what kinds of varieties you might be able to grow in your area, depending on where you're located, and what you might be able to produce for the florists in your area, as well as possibly your local flower farmers market, etc. In order to be able to provide those flowers to florists, a lot of the big flower farmers started to grow and produce those varieties of flowers. And consequently, also, other aspects of these flowers that go into play that affect pricing, availability, etc., is general cost. Some of these more specialty variety flowers are just plain harder to grow, for starters. They're more finicky when it comes to how they're harvested and when they're harvested. And a lot of them also are just more labor intensive to produce, grow, harvest, process them, getting ready to package them for shipping, depending on where they happen to be headed, etc. And all of that is a cost that somebody has to bear. And ultimately, it ends up being a cost that a lot of us, as floral designers, are paying for. However, a lot of these flowers also are so finicky when it comes to being shipped anywhere. A lot of them don't like being put in a box, and consequently they don't ship very well. So by the time they get to wherever they're going, they don't look all that great. So some of this is part of what is fueling new flower farmers, especially in the United States. And there are several different associations and organizations that flower farmers can be a part of to support each other that helps all of them figure out how they're going to produce what they produce, when they produce it, where they can produce it, because not everything can grow everywhere, and how they're going to get it to their potential customers. So this is part of the big headache that a lot of these big flower farmers outside the United States that started growing these specialty types of flowers, they have become so cost prohibitive to produce that they have now told this friend of mine who happens to be the flower buyer that the trend is now going to shift. A lot of these big flower farms that were producing more of these specialty type varieties are just not going to produce them anymore because it's not worth the time, energy, and cost to grow them. So they're putting their energy back in the types of varieties that aren't as finicky when it comes to growing and harvesting and processing and shipping to get them wherever the demand happens to be. So, if you happen to be a flower farmer, this is where you can possibly pick up the slack. The design trend and the desire for these kinds of more garden variety and tender varieties of flowers is not changing. In fact, the demand is going up. The floral industry as a whole is growing at a tremendous rate and is really predicted to grow between 5 and 10% by the year 2025. So the timing, if you are a flower farmer, might be right if you want to consider growing certain varieties of flowers to sell wholesale, either direct to florists at your local flower market or your local farmers market. Talking about these varieties that are going to be kind of in flux for the next couple of years, this is really good timing to start planning ahead this year if you are a flower farmer, or even if you are a retail florist or a home-based studio florist, etc. If any floral designer anywhere working within the floral industry and producing floral design work to sell, if you have any space whatsoever where you can potentially grow some of the product that you utilize in your design work, you really might want to think about doing that. So if you happen to like videos like this that are kind of keeping you up to speed on what's happening within the industry, I hope you'll give this video a thumbs up, giving this video a like with all social media, and it's the same here on YouTube. Giving it a like direct on the platform and leaving a comment if you would. That really helps the algorithm know that this is information that people are wanting to hear and learn about. So ultimately, the platform will push this video out for more people to see. Consequently, that'll help me out as well. So again, give it a like. If you've subscribed to my channel, that's great. If you'd like to be notified when I do upload new content for you, definitely hit the bell icon down below. So until next time, be well everybody, and we will see you very soon. Bye for now.